All right. And our last but not least, our speaker is Anna Jamborchich. Um, Anna is a product strategist and co-founder of Social Roots, a network coordination platform that allows groups to communicate and share information for movement building. She guides the project's direction and is focused on product software development, product strategy, and regenerative org design. Take it away, Anna.
Cool. All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm Anna. I am building Social Roots. It's kind of nice to have this mutual aid example right before us because we're kind of the one level up from that. So it's really complementary and it's really cool to see. So basically, we are building the technology to try to ask the question of how do we enable self-organization across autonomous groups in networks at scale. We are a co-op, so we are funded by the National Science Foundation, and we have been in this space for 10 years now. And basically, how we came to this is um, we were building tools for the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015, and we had built a Connect website that was like a portal for the volunteers, and we had 200,000 volunteers, and we had 25 Slacks and 3 Reddit groups, and um, you know 10 Facebook groups that were official, and who knows how many others. And basically, we couldn't get everybody to really understand what was happening. It was like a full-time job. Um, and so we ran into this problem of how do we scale networks where groups want to have their own space and still be able to connect to each other. And one of the tools we built was the Bernie Friend Finder, which ended up reaching millions of people on Facebook, and it increased the voter turnout by an estimated 60,000 people. And then we started to see the power of network effect. And we were like, what if we could really have like a public utility platform that could leverage this and also have safer, more healthier boundaries and permissions to be able to have more autonomy. And when we started pulling on this thread in 2015, started running into like blockchain people and co-ops and kind of sociocratic governance structures, and saw what Lumia was doing was really cool. And we really kind of, the more I looked into this, the more it felt like this was the problem under the problem. Like this is what's preventing us from being able to mobilize at scale. There's something in the technology that's missing. There's something about how we're building technology that's really making this hard. And basically, most technology is built either completely hierarchical or completely flat. So you have this like dictatorship model tech where if I'm in your Slack, you own all my data. I don't really have any representation of my own work. I don't really have any rights. Or if we're in like a social media paradigm, I don't really, it's all like tyranny of the structuralistness. There's no boundaries. I can't really control much. I can be totally public or totally private. But that's not really how communities work. Communities are something in between the two. So we kind of set out to effectively try to solve the front end problem of the decentralized web of how do you build architectures and UI components and governance, informal, like not very heavy governance structures that enable you to have a decentralized network of autonomous groups that can still self-organize, that can have shared power in a healthy way. And one of the key ingredients to do this when we were looking at the architectures was you really, like most things, just center the person, and the person, it's a person-to-person communication system. And we said, we started to realize in order to have more complexity of our self-organization and healthier boundaries and an understanding of community spaces, you really have to have the group be the central node in the way that you architect and design and everything that you build. And that's what changes this paradigm from a dictatorship to something more democratic, something more distributed in the actual affordances of the way that people are interacting. And we basically got $2 million from the National Science Foundation, and we started kind of doing a deep dive into like what was missing, what's missing, what's missing. And the problem that we found in our particular use case was this like coordinating across silos problem. Like if you have 50 Slacks, how do you get them all to understand what's happening coherently? And we did hundreds and hundreds of interviews with community managers and coordinators and facilitators and program managers and nonprofits and fourth sector and everyone you can imagine. And we ran into like a common problem of this is too expensive, this is too hard. The tools out there aren't really able to help us with coordinating across groups. So Sasha is one of the people we interviewed. She was doing prescribed burns in California in 2018. And they had this really amazing organization, the Good Fire Alliance. And they were using Slack and they were using Google Drive and they were doing really well and things were going awesome. And they were going so awesome that suddenly all these other organizations were like, I want to be a part of this. I want to get involved. I want to do research with you. I want to do prescribed burns. I want to donate to you. And then other nonprofits sprang up, except each one of those had their own Slack and their own Mighty Networks and their own WhatsApp and their own Facebook. And then suddenly Sasha was like unable to keep up, and nobody in her organization or any other organization had this understanding of who is doing what.
Quack.
And this is how networks fragment. So this is what we saw over and over and over again. You get to a certain scale, and then you kind of can't keep up. So Social Roots helps autonomous networks of groups coordinate. I can think of it as a hub, but it's really a hub of hubs. So each one of these can be its own network, and then they all connect based on actual real world relationships. And then they can see like organizational and ecosystem maps of who's doing what what ways they can work together, sharing information across silos. And most importantly, having conversations across groups so that it's not just a conversation in one group, but it's a conversation across many, many groups, and each group has some say in the permissions around those. We call them transcoded conversations. And the goal, the vision, is that if you can have healthy conversational boundaries with the right understanding of the ecosystem and the right resources and communication cadences and tools and affordances, you can start to understand what piece of the ecosystem you're actually part of and what other people are doing and how you can support each other. And if you can push on systemic levers at the same time, you have a chance of actually creating systemic change. But if you're all doing something in different directions, then you can't actually have collective action.
Quack, quack.
And that's it.